I'm going to start this going in maybe a different direction than perhaps you anticipated from somebody with such reasonable eyes. I did not watch the Nottingham Forest Leicester match at all over the weekend. I did, however, see some sort of reaction after the game from a Neville and from some other people, right, where they were very upset with the manager coming onto the field. And of course, I saw, or the manager, the owner, Marinakis, who's a guy I've made a video about before, and he is, if nothing else, he is a character with a capital character. I saw these images of him being on the field, kind of, posting up with Nuno, who is the coach of Nottingham Forest. And based off the reaction I saw, including, I think it was Gary Neville saying that Nuno Espirito Santo should consider resigning, right? Consider resigning because of the way that he was just treated by the owner. I had a certain conception of what happened in my mind. I mean, we are talking about a guy who is basically, to borrow a phrase, he feels like he's in the Greek mafia or something, right? His dad worked in shipping. He was the only son. I know all of this because I made a video about him before, because he was kind of brought up on drug trafficking charges where he's never actually charged, but he was involved in like a drug trafficking case. He's been accused of kind of slander and stuff. But I think it's also clear, Marinakis, who also owns Olympiacos and some team in Portugal, he is a very passionate owner, and he is not a bad owner. He is not the type of guy that when the team's not doing well, all of a sudden he pulls the money away. He won the Conference League with Olympiacos last year, which is, a major European title with a Greek club is crazy. He's owned them for a while, and he bought Nottingham Forest when I think they were in the championship when he bought them. And he has managed to obviously bring Nottingham Forest through no small investment, but also within FFP, right? He's had Nottingham Forest kind of up against the FFP line, but not actually going over it. He's managed to get them into Europe. They've guaranteed qualification for Europe for the first time in 30 years. The two-time European champion club is back. So all of the things that Marinakis is, which is potentially, having never met the guy, an actually pretty awful person, he is also a passionate, determined, like, you wouldn't be upset if this guy was owning your club. You know what I mean? So I wasn't, based off all these things that I knew, I wasn't surprised. If I had to pick an owner in the Premier League, I might have picked Marinakis to be the person that's going to spawn in on the field and kind of have a word with Nuno Espirito Santo. Right? Like, to just have a word, right? But based off the things that I was hearing, this went way too far. Based off the things I was hearing, the owner, I wouldn't have been surprised if he shoved him or something, or really got in his face and kind of pointing and yelling. Because obviously I knew that the result was the result. It was a 2-2 draw against a team getting relegated when, if you win that match, by the way, just to pull up the Premier League standings, Nottingham Forest to be on 64 points and currently sitting in a Champions League spot, right? They've guaranteed European places because top 8 get, Europe, but they're guaranteed to be in the top 7 anyways, so that wouldn't necessarily matter. That is, of course, depending on the winner of the FA Cup, but I'm just flexing my, if Crystal Palace wins the FA Cup, then top 8 don't get Europe. If Man City wins it, then the top 8 do get Europe. Top 5 are getting Champions League, and then Europa League is 6, and Europa League will be 7 if Man City wins. If Crystal Palace wins, Nottingham Forest will be headed to the Conference League, so he can try and win the Conference League with multiple teams. Marinakis, at least. He's already won it, obviously, with one. And I had this idea in my mind of what this looked like based off of the reaction. But then I actually watched the video, and this is the video. So after the match, Nuno Espirito Santos is walking around, and Marinakis is on the field. It's going to be pretty obvious who he is. And this is it. It's, hold on, I had the audio on. I'm going to mute that. It's 20 seconds, right? He says, hey to, Oliver Skip. And then Marinakis comes out and has a conversation. It's an animated conversation. And that's it. That's it. And then he's just muttering to himself, right? He's just muttering to himself while he's walking off the field. I'm disappointed. I thought this was more. I'm not going to lie to you. I really did think this was more. Now, if this was the Glazers that did this, if this was Stan Kroenke from Arsenal's just walking down there giving Mikel Arteta a piece of his mind, that would be more of a story. It would be more surprising. But if you know anything about this guy, he is passionate. He is like, if you had to paint a stereotype of a Mediterranean man who loves his football, that's what you're going to get, right? This is somebody that's been suspended for 5 matches for spitting on the floor of his suite in the direction of the official, which I didn't know you could get suspended for that. I mean, it's not like the spittle didn't even leave the suite, but I guess, not a free country anymore. I'm just kidding. But he gets suspended for 5 matches for spit on the floor on camera in the direction of the official, and then didn't apologize. He was like, he made bad calls. He was up. He is very involved, very public facing, very culture and kind of passion oriented in a way that a lot of other owners are. So while I agree that he's just more involved, honestly, he feels more involved than most owners. And if some of those other owners I listed did this, it obviously would have been a bigger deal. It would have been a bigger surprise because it would have been a giant pivot from who they are and the way that they've operated, which would signify something crazier is going on. But to be perfectly honest, if you're Nuno Espirito Santos, this is not the first time you've had this conversation. You've been coaching this team for a year. Okay, I mean, you have dealt with Marinakis for a year. And this dude is a lot. He is a lot. And watching these 20 seconds back, I'm not the least bit surprised that it happened. And I am surprised that so many people are overly offended by it. And it actually makes a lot more sense when you understand what they were talking about. So apparently, I didn't know this at the time, and it wasn't involved in the discussion at all, but this feels relevant to me. Marinakis wanted to talk to Nuno Espirito Santos about Taiwo Awoniyi because Taiwo Awoniyi collided with the post kind of late in the game, and it took a long time to assess whether he was going to be okay or not. But then the staff and Taiwo said he's going to be okay. He can keep playing. And so Nuno Espirito Santos goes ahead and makes his last subs, and then it becomes clear Taiwo can't keep playing, so Nottingham Forest essentially have to play a man down for the conclusion of this game, which again is an incredibly important game. You can't, I mean, they have 2 points from their last 3 matches against Brentford, Crystal Palace, and Leicester, and they're kind of fumbling a Champions League spot right now. I understand the idea of, the frustration. Basically, they ended up a man down for trying to chase the game after this goal. They ended up a man down. And so Espirito Santos, they both spoke about it after the game. Marinakis spoke about what happened as well. Espirito Santos was very clear to say what they were talking about. Nuno is keen to stress the Greeks owner's actions were down to confusion over the use of Awoniyi. It was due to the situation, the confusion over Awoniyi. We made a difficult sub, and after that, we played one man less, so that frustrates everyone. When a player is down, you get information he's okay. Then we make a sub, and it turns out he can't continue. We're all frustrated by that. Espirito Santos continues. Football is emotions. It's difficult to control, and especially when we had so much expectation and the fans were incredible. The journalists then pushed him further. So shout out to the BBC here. And he said, it's because the owner and his passion that we're growing as a club. He pushes us. He wants us to be better. It is his passion and desire to be a big club. 30,000 people felt the same today. For sure, many of them would go on the pitch and shake us down. Us as a club, we owe a lot to the Marinakis family. Now, obviously, you're not going to get a fully honest opinion from Nuno Espirito Santos. I'm not an idiot. He's talking about his boss. If you are sitting in a press conference talking about your boss, you're probably not going to say all of the things that are on your mind, all of the things that you would like to say. And if I was Nuno Espirito Santos, would I be happy that Marinakis has appeared on the field? No. But this is if I didn't know that Marinakis was the owner, this wouldn't have been an out of ordinary conversation to be had. Right? If this was just another member of the coaching staff, if it was the general manager, the director of football, a member of the training staff, a member of the physiotherapy staff, it'd be like, oh, look, they're frustrated by the loss. They're having this kind of stern conversation on the field. The fact that it's the owner, right, and that the power structure is inverted, where normally the manager would be kind of the one in charge, but in this conversation, the owner's the one in charge. Maybe I'm surprising myself here, but I don't have an over-the-top problem with this. If Marinakis did this every time they lost, if he did this every single game, if he, went out there and publicly reprimanded Nuno Espirito Santos and every single time, but he hasn't. but he doesn't. He's owned the club for a long time. I've never seen a story about him doing this before. This is the first time he's done it this year. And it was in the Champions League race, and there was a player that they left on the field and made other subs, and then they ended up playing a man down, and it was a whole mess of a situation. And he just went down on the field, and he didn't give a damn what anybody else thought, and he wanted to, probably came in and was like, what the hell did you do? And then Nuno Espirito Santos goes, look, he told us he was fine. Our physiotherapy staff told us he was fine, and that wasn't the case. And then he just goes, damn it. Like just mutters his way off the field. It wasn't physical. I don't think it was overly over the top. And I don't really, I am not overly bothered by the fact that this happened, because the only difference between this and a lot of other owners in this situation would have been this would have happened in the tunnel underneath the stadium instead of out on the field right after the game. But I don't think this is something that undermines the coach, which would be a concern. You don't want to make the coach look like a lame duck or like they're taking marching orders from Marinakis. I think this is just something that shows the owner's passion, but also shows how little Marinakis cares about how other people perceive him. Again, he could be a really shitty dude. It's entirely possible, right? He's been involved in multiple of these investigations, but there's one thing you can't question about this guy, is he really, really, really cares, and he wants to win, and he tries to win, and he's not a terrible owner when it comes to just the logistics of winning. He might be a terrible owner to coach for, because you've got him like up your ass after every game. But wouldn't you rather have that than an owner that, never even comes to the games? Right? I think this whole thing is an overreaction. If it becomes a systemic problem and creates this huge rift publicly between these two, the owner and the manager, then obviously we have a different story. But the owner came out and also released a statement that I think kind of gets ahead of it. And echoed a lot of the things Nuno said, which this is natural. This is a demonstration of the passion we feel for our club. Today is a celebration because of after 30 years, we're now guaranteed to be competing in Europe. A promise I made to the supporters when we achieved promotion. With 2 more games to go in the Prem, we must keep believing and dreaming right to the final kick. We're extremely proud and close to Nuno and the team, and we must all celebrate historic achievements this season. So he didn't come out after the game and bash Nuno and bash the physio staff that said Taiwo was there. He came out after the game and very quickly said, look, we are proud. We're incredibly happy with this team and the way they're playing, and we support them 100%. We're just really passionate about the team and the game, and we got to keep believing, and we missed an opportunity today, but we still have these other opportunities, and keep fighting, boys, and that sort of thing. So I think this will just go away and end up not mattering nearly as much, but it is definitely a weird situation. You just don't see owners interact this way publicly with coaches in the Premier League, and I think that definitely has caught some people maybe just by surprise. Or maybe some people, and I wouldn't be surprised if you watching this, believe that the owner shouldn't be this involved. But like I said earlier, I'd rather have somebody like Marinakis own the club than somebody like, I'm trying to think of Peter Lim, those types of owners that they don't, they just don't even come to the games, right? They kind of let the club rot. I'd rather be more too passionate, and it kind of spills over every once in a while, than not passionate at all. And I think that Marinakis, in some ways, this kind of exemplifies how he's been able to light the fire for Nottingham Forest, is he just doesn't accept not winning, even if it's in the Prem.